Hi, I'm Joseph Bradfield, PR and Communications Advisor. Welcome to the penultimate episode of the Sussex Pioneers series, titled Curiouser and Curiouser. Creativity is at the heart of problem solving, and it's critical for innovation, so it goes without saying that your workplace needs to encourage creative thinking. That means embracing curiosity, imagination, and lateral thinking, while also getting comfortable with ambiguity and risk. In this episode, our innovators discussed their creative process and what they've learned along the way. To kick things off, Paul Nightingale, Professor of Strategy from the University of Sussex Business School, shares his thoughts about what makes a creative organisation.
Some people may not think of themselves as particularly creative, but all businesses need to be able to think creatively, to keep growing, solve problems, exploit their resources, diversify, spread risk across different projects, or respond to changing demand. Conservative processes, strict rules and rigid structures can act as barriers that stifle this kind of creativity. We've spent a lot of time throughout this series focusing on how to manage the uncertainties within the innovation process. In the very first episode, I emphasised that creativity by itself is not innovation. Equally, innovation can't happen without some creativity. If you are to successfully innovate then, you must find a way to balance the tension between the creativity that generates new ideas and the structured approach that brings them to fruition. Build a culture that encourages and rewards ideas, accepting risk and failure. Without reinforcing these values, your team is always more likely to worry about the costs of their actions than consider their potential benefits to the company. There are several approaches that can be used to unlock lateral thinking and creative design ideas. One direction involves inviting new perspectives into the business to challenge established patterns and ways of thinking. Focus groups bring customers and clients together, while most knowledge transfer programs or consultancy models involve harnessing some kind of expertise from outside. The other direction is to carve out space and time for your team to get away from business as usual and be disruptive. This might take the form of regular brainstorming sessions, Google's famous 20% rule that gives employees 1 day per week to work on side projects, or even a skunk works that operates as a startup venture with its own dedicated team within the business. Whether internal or external, there are a number of creativity tools and techniques that can be used to structure your thoughts and ideas in these groups. We'll explore the Scamper method later in this episode, but importantly, it is a simple act of giving people permission to follow their imagination wherever they lead. Over to our innovators for a look at how they've built organisational cultures that are conducive to creativity.
Ancient Brave was devised at a moment where there were lots of protein powders out there was lots of noise, talking about different ingredients, and it just became completely baffling to me that there were 10, 20, 30 different ingredients going in one product. And most of them I hadn't heard of, most of them tasted frankly slightly revolting. And I thought, well, I know how to blend now, I've worked out how to formulate. I know where to source the best ingredients, I know I can do this better. The heart of everything we do from the outset really with Ancient Brave has been about purity, sustainability, potency, and it's to convey that feeling of trust. So we are a brand that the consumers are going to trust and then want to buy into us.
And the trick was to talk about this, not in a wellness voice, to talk in a much more of a lifestyle-y, elegant, refined manner. The pack is black, not white. At the time when we launched this, wellness was traditionally white or craft.
And quite clinical.
Very clinical, yeah. And if it was organic or wellness or healthy or good for you, it would be in craft and green.
And at the same time, you have to balance that with not looking like we're a candle brand.
Exactly.
And it does have integrity and it does feel established and come with trust and knowledge.
Yes.
It's always so great for us to get feedback from our customer. I mean, we're a very flat structure here. We're still small enough that we actually chat constantly amongst the group, ourselves. So we're hearing all the time the feedback that we're getting, which is fantastic because it basically goes across operations to sales to product development. And a couple of things that we're actually going to be bringing out very shortly are a direct influence of some of the feedback that we've been receiving. So for example, we've actually introduced great subscription packages at the end of last year, and we're actually going to be bringing out compostable packaging so that people can get those quick and easy and through the post. We're going to be expanding on our sachet range so that people can travel with our products, which is actually a lovely thing to know that people want to take them on a holiday with them. And we've brought out our own ritual wellness jar, which means that you can decant any of our products as well and have them in your kitchen. There are many days where it's slightly relentless. We're problem solving all the time, and they're problems that you haven't even anticipated yet. I think one of the biggest things that you forget as an entrepreneur, because you're so engrossed in the daily grind, is you've got to applaud your wins. You've got to be grateful, thankful, and really proud of yourself when things go really well.
The reason we use different flavourings is to really set ourselves apart from the competition. So by adding different alcohols and botanicals to the fish, we get different flavours, which they might not be to everyone's taste, but if we can get one person with one flavour and another person with another, we might be able to bring everyone in to trying the full range at some point. The way we have traditionally developed our new products is from attending farmers markets. That was really crucial right at the start. We could literally make a flavour one week, take it to the market on Saturday, see if it's sold, see if the idea of it sold, because of course, for example, we started off with something which we called a Mexican gravel axe, which to my mind sounded great. But actually, to the customers, they were a bit like, what is Mexican gravel axe? And all it was made with tequila, coriander, chili, and lime. So we thought, well, there we go, Mexican gravel axe. But actually, we renamed it the following week to be the margarita. And whether it was luck, I don't know, but the margarita stuck and people liked to buy it more so for the name there. So one of the things we do now to introduce new flavors or test them out is we will have a seasonal flavor. So for example, in the autumn, we've done cider and cinnamon in the past. Around St. Patrick's Day in March time, we might do a Guinness and tarragon one. And then at Christmas time, we did one with which was steeped in sherry. So we test these out, we send them out to our customers, and we have a review system. So it's not always nice to read sometimes, but generally we do pretty well, and people can be very honest and very forthright in their reviews. And we will get a very good indication of whether or not this is something we could maybe pursue, or maybe we should just leave it where it is. When I first started, I wanted to, shall I say, break the mold and do everything a little bit differently to what had been done before. The way we've changed a real traditional product, which a lot of our competitors talk about their heritage and they've been doing it the same way for 100 years, which is fantastic for them. We don't have that history. So we've changed things to say that we have different flavorings to change the flavor of smoked salmon in many ways. We present our product a bit differently, so we actually slice it slightly differently to what you might be used to in the supermarkets, which has helped set us apart from our competitors. Our branding is a bit more, we've tried to make it fun, a bit humorous, whereas a lot of our competitors are very traditional, very quite serious. There's lots of gold foil on their packaging. Again, this is because they have that heritage and it's something which we don't have, so we have to bring something new to the game. So my first big supermarket pitch, I went in and I'd actually taken them some of their own smoked salmon they were already selling on their shelves, and I circled all the words that were exactly the same on every single pack of smoked salmon that they were selling to be different brands, but they all sounded the same. They all had the same buzzwords, the same imagery, the same colouring. And so I took our products in and said, look, this is what we're going to do different. We're not following the normal tried and tested route, but if you like the product that we've created through our innovation, then this is what we'd like to get on your shelves.
And welcome to today's roundtable discussion, where we're meeting some lovely creative entrepreneurs and experts from Sussex Innovation. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Dave.
Could you introduce yourselves, starting with?
I'm James Eagle, and I'm the Managing Director of The Pished Fish, and we make booze-infused smoked salmon.
I'm Helena Jevons, and I'm Head of Sales and Marketing for Sussex Innovation.
I'm Kate Prince. I'm founder of Ancient and Brave, and we do food and beverages and supplements for promoting well-being.
I'm Tanya Poppo. I'm the Head of Innovation at Sussex Innovation.
Okay, so I'm going to start by just asking everyone, generally, how important is creativity to innovation?
Madly. It's really important. I mean, I think I couldn't start a brand without first thinking about the creation of it, the flow, the story behind it, all the different products, and it's got to have a history, it's got to have a life, I think, beyond just the initial image.
So it's not just, I want to do this, so I'm going to do that. It's not a to-do list. It's not an Excel sheet in that respect.
No, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's essentially it's a flow. But I think the best brands that I see that I love are the ones that have a whole kind of remit, story, ethos, vision. And I think those are the brands that are really creative, and they have space to be creative, to take them through kind of the start to the arc of their business.
How does everyone else feel about that?
I think I found that actually the creativity and the innovation have gone hand in hand. So my story now is very different to when I first started, when I was doing farmers markets. But my story at the farmers markets was still part of why we were there. So the creativity and the innovation, it's almost this one and the same thing, and it fuels the next phase of the business. So I now talk about when I used to do farmers markets, which of course would have been kind of a strange thing to talk about when I was doing a farmers market.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's got to be a reason for being, and then within that, you develop your story and where you come from, and then where you end up.
Where do ideas come from?
Yeah, I think just picking up on what you're saying, your question, that reason for being and where the ideas come from. I think the bit that people don't understand is you cannot have a controlled, now we're doing creativity. That doesn't work.
Right.
And creativity comes from a culture that is infused within an organisation or within a company. And that starts from scratch. It starts from the very beginning. It starts from the ethos of the company, as you've just said. It starts from the environment that I create on day one and the environment that we have in the office, how our staff are, how we behave. So the ideas, creativity, innovation can just be infused from top to bottom, really.
I think it didn't, for me, it wasn't a single point in time. I used to get asked all the time, certainly at the farmers markets, how did you come up with your name for your business? And of course, people still ask me. I don't know. All I remember was it was either a drunken conversation with my brother.
You were pished.
When I said, oh, I think you're calling it this. Or there was something more structured to it, but actually it came, I don't know where, it certainly wasn't from an Excel, it wasn't a list of names or which is the best one, and we'll do some market research on this. It was just what felt right. And then actually the name has kind of guided some of our principles or some of my ideas about what I want to do.
Well,
with the brand as
retroactively,
well.
so you came up with the name by accident almost.
Yeah.
Created a brand and it worked.
Yeah.
But then actually the name is now informing further creativity.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it gives us the drive or the need to carry on being creative, because without if our name encompassed something about tradition and being the same as we had been for the last 100 years or whatever, doing it the same way as we always have done, there'd be no need or no want from our customers for anything new.
Kate, how did you come up with the name of Ancient and Brave?
Yeah, well, we started actually just with Brave, and there were a few other companies. It was literally an IP issue because there were a lot of companies out there with the Brave, and actually suddenly I started to think, well, the Brave for us stands for that kind of brave new science innovation, which is actually really important to the brand. And actually I wanted something that represented the values and where it came from. So that kind of led in the ancient locked in, which was the sort of ancient rituals looking back at thousands of years of wellness. And so actually I love the kind of synergy between that ancient and now the brave new science.
I'm really interested in, because there's creativity in that, isn't there? So essentially you've come up with what you really want, you can't have it, so you adapt it. And you said that you kind of thought about, you went deep into, well, what's more of the foundation of what we're trying to produce. What was going on in your head? Where were you? How was that happening?
Well, at the same time we wanted to give real depth to the brand, and that became not just about products, but about a brave lifestyle. And I think from brave lifestyle, we started to look at where the ingredients came from, with South America, and that really actually impacted on the look and feel of the brand. But actually taking it back further into the ancient rituals. And I think actually it's a stronger, more thoughtful brand because we had an IP issue that we had to resolve. And I think now it sort of stands out a little bit more and resonates.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting when you come to a block like that when you're an entrepreneur in whatever business you're in, but I think especially if you're creating a physical product in a market where you've actually got to take something that's got challenges around raw materials and all of those things through, and then you come to a challenge like that, and actually the time that forces sometimes for reflection in what can otherwise be quite a full-on, fast-paced entrepreneurial journey can often be sort of the crucible. Actually, something new is forged in.
Definitely.
So I think it's really interesting that you talk about it like that, because one of the things I think about both these brands is both your journeys on your entrepreneurial journeys of how you started and how you've evolved, how you created your packaging and the difference in your proposition compared to all the other brands that are out there, and how you have absolutely fused this ancient and modern together are such great examples of brands that really wanted to do something very creative and very different in markets where there already were a lot of incumbent players.
And I think also early on, when you hit a brick wall or a problem and you've got such a clear vision and it feels completely insurmountable, I think when you go through this challenge, it shows actually something much, much better can come out of it.
Right, yeah.
And the more, I mean, James will know this, the more you hit these brick walls and the more you have to kind of pivot and move around, the more you know that you can almost like cope with anything that's going to be thrown at you. So you just become more confident or more reassured that actually that's just a problem for today. And we're just problem solving every day.
And so I think that's a really common thing that people often think about, creativity as this abstract, wonderful, creative thing that happens sort of floating around in the clouds. And actually, creativity is every element of every day of being an entrepreneur, whatever market you're in.
I think starting after after you came to visit us a few weeks ago, I think the thing which I took home from that was actually creativity. I would have thought of creativity as being putting a pen to paper and drawings and illustrations, and that's what then it's design but actually for us creativity is finding new routes to market and developing our product to best suit that market. And there's a lot of the design's done. The design is all out of the way now, and actually everything else that's creative.
So it's like an iceberg almost. The design is at the top, the brand is at the top, and then all the other creative decisions go down.
Brand, I guess it's the brand visuals, I suppose, are the constant, and we have to work within that framework. And I suppose for you, Kate, you've sort of been guided by your sourcing of ingredients and to come up with the look and design of your packaging and stuff. Whereas for us, it was that got created before, and so that has helped guide and design what we then create and put into the packs themselves.
Both of you are in an amazing position because you're premium brands. Some people can really struggle around that because you're not curtailed by price points or your resources necessarily. Obviously, there's a limitation, but often people have so much choice and there's so much that you can do that it becomes, not what the customer wants, and as particularly when you're in an area where there is lots of products which are similar to what you're doing already, often you can get lost in such a big market. So I think you've obviously hit the challenge really well in that you've designed products that whilst you've got lots of opportunity, lots of space, lots of variety, that the product still hits the market and the customer wants. And obviously for kind of other businesses, they have the other issues you've said, that they don't have much opportunity, they don't have that much space, there's not much variety, and you're trying to reduce the price as much as possible. How do you still be creative in that kind of space and in that kind of price point?
That's a big challenge.
It's like Tesco's no frills, How do you be creative in that kind of place?
So that's quite an interesting point in that we have, as a brand, gone quite high end, sort of Selfridges, Harrods, etc. And actually, it was really interesting because I wanted to develop a product line that would be suitable for more of a high street market or a supermarket. So we've actually just created another kind of diffusion brand through Ancient and Brave to kind of try and tell a slightly different story and also hit potentially an interested entry-level customer base.
That's the way it's happening these days.
Yeah.
If you've got a premium brand, obviously I don't know if we can mention brands here, but John Lewis has just done it with their Anyday brand. It's obviously easier to start at the premium level and then go down and introduce at lower price points. That's interesting, isn't it? As opposed to being Tesco no frills and suddenly start to sell amazing salmon, So it gives you much more space.
We're actually going the opposite way and we start developing a range which is even higher price point now. But we wouldn't be able to do that coming from, if we were known for being the cheapest smoked salmon around, it'd be very difficult to create a product which is, even if it did taste so much better or even if it were a superior product, if we were known for being super cheap.
It's about trust, isn't it? It's about trust. We've got the ability and the quality to reach this market, so therefore we can go down and reach that market. However, if you're going at the lowest entry point, it then becomes nigh on impossible. I can't think of a single example, maybe we will at the end of the conversation, but where somebody has gone at the lowest price point and then sold at a premium level.
EasyJet. Okay, well, I'd like to introduce you all to a tool which I suspect you're probably using elements of, which I think you might find quite interesting. So let's have a look at the tool.
The Scamper method helps you generate ideas for new products and services by encouraging you to ask 7 different types of questions, which will help you understand how you can improve, innovate existing product, services, problems and ideas. Alex Osborne is credited by many as the originator of brainstorming, producing many of the questions used in this technique. However, it was Bob Eberle, an education administrator and author, who organised these questions into the Scamper mnemonic. Scamper refers to a series of thought sparkers or provocations which help you to innovate on an existing product, service or situation by looking through different lenses. There are 7 provocation lenses in total in the Scamper method. 1. Substitute. What can I substitute or change in my product, problem or process? You should think about substituting parts of your product for something else. 2. Combine. How can I combine 2 or more parts of the problem or process so as to achieve a different outcome to enhance synergy? Creative thinking involves combining previously unrelated ideas, products or services in order to create something new and innovative. 3. Adapt. What can I adapt in my product, problem or process? Think about which parts you could adapt so as to solve the problem. 4. Modify. What can I modify or put more or less emphasis on in my product, problem or process? Can I change the item in some way? Can I change meaning, colour, motion, sound, smell, form or shape? It's time to magnify and exaggerate or indeed to minify it. These questions will give you new insights about which components are the most important ones. Think about changing part or all of the current situation or product. Alternatively, distort the product in an unusual way. 5. Put to other purpose. How can I put the thing to other uses? What are new ways to use the product or service? Can I reach out to other users if I modify the product? Is there another market for the product? It's time to work out how you may be able to put your current process or ideas to other uses and purposes. 6. Eliminate. What can I eliminate or simplify in my product, design or service? Think about what might happen if you were to eliminate, simplify, reduce or minimise parts of your idea. If you continue to trim your idea, service or process, you can gradually narrow your challenge down to that most important part or function. 7. Reverse. How can I change, reorder or reverse the product or problem? What would I do if I had to do this product and process in reverse? Take, for example, McDonald's founder Ray Kroc. He used the P for put to other purpose. He sold restaurants and real estate instead of simply selling hamburgers. Using the E for eliminate, he let customers serve themselves and thereby avoided the use of expensive waiters. When you want to innovate and improve existing products, services, problems and ideas, remember, Scamper.
Okay, so that's the Scamper model. Do either of you feel like you've used elements of that, or can you recognise that as part of your process?
I think maybe from a starting point of view, when I was first getting going, it was through the ideas. There are things that I used to found the business, and it gave us the framework that we follow now. Whether we follow the letter by letter, I would imagine that if you're running a business and you have either hit a brick wall or you've maxed out on something, that it's probably a good way of taking it back to basics. But if you are a young, creative, growing brand, it's probably something that you're doing without even knowing that you're doing it.
So you both feel that as entrepreneurs yourselves, that it's that kind of thinking is natural to you, and that you'd assume that for most entrepreneurs it would be as well?
I don't go a day without thinking, what new product could we bring out tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. There's not a day that I don't think about it for a big chunk of my day, as sad as that sounds.
And I think this is natural for entrepreneurs. This is how you got into your business. This is why you've got thriving businesses. However, I think when it comes to entrepreneurs, so those people who are within large corporations or within businesses, so they don't own it, but they work within businesses, where we're asking them to be more innovative, more creative. I've certainly worked with people who it doesn't come naturally, let's say, as it does to you. And that's where these tools can be really relevant. And you can apply them in kind of brainstorming sessions.
Right.
And certainly people who feel very stuck and very rigid and find it very difficult to even consider new ideas.
Okay, so I'm going to challenge you both a little bit, because it feels to me, and I'm just making an assumption here, that what you've done is you've created products that match a market that you're already a part of. So where's the creativity in that?
I thought I've always been into my food. I've always enjoyed smoked salmon. So I created something which I do enjoy.
Yeah.
And I created a brand which I find humorous, and I've done these things which I believe in myself. But it turns out, if I were to really look at myself, would I spend the amount of money that my packs of smoked salmon cost on smoked salmon? And I don't think I would. And I know my customer better now, and they're quite a bit older than me, definitely different profession to me. Most of them are different sex to me, and therefore I'm no longer my target market. My target market is very different now.
And how do you know that? How did you find that out?
This is through adapting to using Facebook and other tools for gaining customer data directly. So it's evolved. Has it evolved the nature of the brand? Not necessarily, but I now know who I'm talking to. When it comes to PR releases and stuff. So I had a PR working for us who wanted to go into like young, trendy magazines, and actually that's not where our customers, that's not what our customers read.
Yeah. Okay.
And I wouldn't have known that without, the Facebook side of things.
Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally you'd probably think for my demographic, the typical customer would be me.
Right.
You probably think it's going to be female, probably 30 to 50. I'm not saying how old I am. And actually, when we've dug deeper, it's much more fluid. It's much more longer. I mean, it's like from 20 to about 60 plus, and actually different demographics, different age groups like slightly different products, which has been interesting for us to discover and learn.
How did you discover that?
I mean, I think just by feedback, by social media, by data that, as you mentioned, that we're discovering as part of this journey, and the response that we're getting, the people that signed up to our newsletters, for example. So we can get quite a bit of information now.
So you're always reaching out to people to find out and learn more, get more insight.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what was super interesting for us to discover was that about a third of our customer base are men.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And we have a whole plan to actually launch specific products, sort of registering and nurturing what their needs and requirements, and even taste and flavour actually can change a little bit from a typical female customer. So I think it is good to really, really know your customer, and they're not always you.
Yeah.
So.
I think when it comes to entrepreneurs, we see two things, don't we? We see the businesses where I solved my own problem. I realised that we needed types similar to me, so therefore I solved it and sold to a market that equally want the same thing. And then sometimes we see entrepreneurs who are privy to some sort of information that's not necessarily it's not really them, they're not the target market, but they solve a problem externally to them. And that comes from prototyping and testing with an external market. Like if it doesn't come from you, if you really don't know the problem you're solving, then you have to go out of the building, is what we were talking about earlier. And you have to go out and test with your market so that you can gain relevant feedback. Because if you are so divorced or so, it is a massive gulf between you and your target market. The only way is to talk to them, test and test again and gain that feedback so you can develop your own product.
And actually that's been quite a challenge for the last 2 years really, given COVID. And so actually we've had to do that quite remotely and really delve into kind of social media. I mean, we haven't been able to do it. Normally a business like mine would be doing 2, 3, 4 trade shows a year. We don't do the markets, but the trade shows are really important for us. And actually the first one in 2.5 years is coming up quite shortly for us. And I think that's going to be a big test, just to get the feedback from retailers specifically as to the brand.
So have there been any points in your entrepreneurial journey, is a question that I wanted to ask, where you've come up with something that absolutely bombed out in terms of consumer testing or sales or anything like that?
Well, we do quite a bit of testing in-house with our team before it goes anywhere else. And being in the kind of wellness sector, there's quite a lot of challenging ingredients, shall we say. So often what you're trying to do all the time, even though if they're really good for you and it's got targeted nutrition, you're actually trying to mask the flavour.
Well, what do they taste like?
Well, there's some amino acids, which if anyone's tasted them individually will know that they are there's some extreme flavours going on.
Okay.
It's like being in Harry Potter world, but
But not the good kind.
Not the good kind.
Okay.
So
frogs.
So actually what you want to do the whole time is just find that balance. And we have produced some pretty atrocious things. I've made the team taste, actually. They've never hit the market. I'm gonna add that. So they're not in the Ancient and Brave range currently. But thank God.
Extreme range.
Extreme.
I think we had a product which it was just at farmers markets, so it was never going to be a big seller for us, but it was a strawberries and cream flavour that we did for Wimbledon. I was the only one, my wife Hermione was the only other person in the business. She's vegan, so she wasn't tasting it, so it was only me eating it. I thought it was fine, but it turns out most people we were trying to sell it to either didn't like it or thought it was too weird anyway. Apart from the one person who came back the following week and said, "Have you got any more of the strawberries and cream flavour you did?" And I was like, well, if you'd asked me last week, I had 6 packs left. But, yeah. Because we're known for doing funny flavours with smoked salmon, it almost allows us to have that creativity where even if the flavour isn't great to anyone's opinion, that actually it's all about giving it a go and trying it. Might not work so well on wellness products where it's not about the flavour, it's about what the effect is. But for what we're doing, where it is about taste, it's a different taste, it's unusual, and for some people that is what people want to try.
It's interesting because they say there's no bad ideas, but I suppose what you're saying is test.
Definitely. And taste a lot.
It's a really interesting conversation, and I really appreciate everyone having this discussion. It feels like what I've heard today is the key to creativity and innovation is about being really in touch with your market, also being really in touch with what you're passionate about, and then learning as much as you possibly can. There are tools out there if you need them, understanding where you're at in that process, and then always having things that you can fall back on that you know work for you creatively moving forward. Would you all agree?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Great. I appreciate that. Thanks ever so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Driving creative processes through your business is key to scaling. It's essential that for a business to mature, it can no longer rely on the skills and intuition of the founder. An effective creative process combines insight, curiosity, and intuition. Our innovators keep their eyes and ears open. James was inspired by his travels to Scandinavia and experimenting with creative, differentiated ways of flavouring and smoking and cutting salmon. Kate picked up on emerging trends from California about collagen, realising that flavour and quality could be radically improved and that she could create a stunning product design with shelf appeal to command a premium in the market. So what can we learn about creativity from our local business examples? 1, bring customers and clients to the table during the ideation process. James and Hermione at Pish to Fish were able to successfully design products because they had direct access to feedback at farmers markets. They could test their minimal viable product quickly and easily and then improve and refine. They no longer attend farmers markets, but they still test new products by sending them out to customers in the post. 2, build a culture that encourages and rewards ideas, accepting risk and the potential for failure. Pish to Fish were able to generate lots of ideas, test them with customers, accept the failures like strawberries and cream, and focus on the winners. 3, invite new perspectives into the business to challenge established patterns and ways of thinking. Pish to Fish and Ancient and Brave acknowledge their teams are a key source of innovation and creativity. Flat structures and diverse thinking, and encouraging ideas from every area. It's wonderful to see these entrepreneurs welcoming intrapreneurship from every area of even their small teams. 4, use data and feedback to rigorously test the team's creative ideas. Kate at Ancient and Brave has been analysing market insight data to design a vegan range. She's also analysed customer data to uncover a surprising fact. 30% of her customers are men, and she's now designing a range to meet their needs. 5, use Scamper. Many of our local innovative companies use the Scamper method intuitively, completely unconsciously. but using it mindfully can arm you with tools to improve your whole team's creative ideation process. In the case of Ancient and Brave and Pish to Fish, Scamper helped them create premium brands, avoid competing on price. In fact, both are in categories where price is seen as a reassuring indicator of quality. Use your Sussex Innovation Creativity Canvas to make a creativity action plan for you or your team. The canvas offers easy, bite-sized steps for managing the tension between creativity and structure, a tension that is critical to successful innovation and growth.
Thanks for watching. In our next and final episode, we'll be getting down to brass tacks and talking about money, money, money. Make sure you join the conversation with our business community by clicking on the Discuss button found on the Learning platform. Also, keep an eye out for the next Q&A session, where our experts will be online and ready to answer your questions around creativity and innovation.